The alarm screamed across the orbital stations that circled the Galactic Council's core world, sharp, metallic tones slicing through the polished silence that had ruled the council chambers for centuries. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Council, a body of 1,000 species, faced something they had never imagined possible: a counterattack from Earth. No one had expected humanity to survive, let alone strike back. The Council's last meeting on the human problem had ended with smug confidence. The destruction of several human colonies had been deemed a regrettable necessity to maintain galactic order. Reports labeled Earth's forces as primitive, emotional, and hopelessly outmatched. And yet here they were, trembling as red warning lights painted the marble floors of the chamber, reflecting off the faces of 100 alien diplomats who could not believe what their sensors displayed. The first explosion had hit the Arcturian defense fleet stationed at the border of the Sol sector. Their ships, thought to be impenetrable, vanished in a silent wave of light. The transmission was brief, just one message from a human ship before the feed cut. "This is not vengeance. This is a reply." That phrase spread like wildfire through the networks of every world. A reply. Cold, calm, and terrifying in its simplicity. No threats, no anger, just the weight of something unstoppable. Across the galaxy, civilizations that once mocked humans began to feel a creeping unease. For generations, the Council had treated Earth as a lesser world, a young species too emotional, too chaotic to sit among the enlightened. The humans had begged for diplomacy after their colonies were annexed. They were ignored. When they protested, they were silenced. When they resisted, they were crushed. But now humanity had returned. And this time they were not asking. In the Grand Chamber, the Council's supreme orator, a tall crystalline being known for its perfect logic, struggled to keep its tone steady. "There must be an error in the transmission. No human fleet has ever..." Then the room darkened. A holographic projection filled the air, showing a grainy feed from the outer rim, a fleet emerging from a distortion field. Not ragtag ships, not scavenged crafts. These were sleek, angular, terrifyingly efficient vessels glowing with blue-white energy. Every surface shimmered with an unknown alloy. Their formation was precise, their movement silent, and at the front a single symbol gleamed on their hulls, a circle split by a vertical line. Earth's old insignia, Reborn. Gasps filled the chamber as the feed zoomed closer. The ships bore names etched in languages that the Council recognized: Dauntless, Resolution, Dawnstar. Words that carried weight beyond war. Words that meant something deeply human. The orator's voice cracked. "How did they build this fleet?" No one answered. Behind the scenes, deep within the intelligence division, a quiet panic unfolded. For years, human signals had gone dark. Their technology was thought to have regressed after their isolation. But new data revealed something far more dangerous. Humanity hadn't vanished. They had gone silent to build. They had focused, unified, and evolved faster than anyone had believed possible. Rumors whispered through the Council that humans had mastered dark energy, the same force the elder species had deemed uncontrollable. Others claimed they had fused artificial and biological systems into something new, something alive. But the most disturbing theory came from an intercepted human transmission months earlier. "We do not seek war. We seek remembrance." That word, remembrance, lingered in the orator's mind like an echo. Remembrance of what? Of what they once were, or of what the galaxy had done to them. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the world was no longer the broken blue marble the Council had last mapped. Fast orbital arrays hummed in low orbit. Giant towers of mirrored glass reached toward the sky, reflecting oceans reborn after centuries of healing. Humanity had learned to live with its scars, and to weaponize its pain. Aboard the flagship Dawnstar, the bridge was silent. The human commander stood before a panoramic view of the stars. Their face was unreadable, their voice calm as they issued the order. "Transmit the message to all sectors. We are done pleading." With a single command, the fleet accelerated, faster than any Council ship could track. Entire systems blinked with flashes of light as Earth's counterstrike began. Back in the Council chamber, chaos erupted. Dozens of diplomats shouted over one another, some calling for peace, others for immediate retaliation. The orator slammed its staff, silencing the uproar. "We must send envoys. If we respond with violence, we may doom the entire network. But it was too late. Across multiple colonies, human ships appeared, disabling rather than destroying, targeting communications and power grids with surgical precision. The message was clear: this wasn't annihilation. It was control. Humanity wasn't fighting for revenge. They were reclaiming balance. Still, deep beneath the Council's capital, some began to suspect a darker truth. What if this was never about balance? What if Earth had discovered something, a technology, a truth, that the Council had tried to bury long ago? The idea spread like a shadow among the leaders. Maybe the humans weren't just avenging themselves. Maybe they were enforcing something older than any galactic law. Reports poured in, human ships moving in patterns that mirrored the ancient stellar maps. Planetary defenses crumbling without casualties. Human voices on open channels saying, "We warned you." The orator tried to speak, but the sound of distant thunder rolled through the chamber. Not thunder, but shockwaves. The Council's own defense grid was collapsing. Then, for the first time in its history, the Galactic Council's central system went offline. In the darkness, only the projection of Earth's insignia remained, glowing faintly above the silent delegates. A voice came through every speaker, calm and human. "We remember everything." Then the signal cut. The chamber sat in absolute silence. No one dared to breathe. The galaxy, vast, ancient, and proud, realized it had underestimated the one species that never truly surrendered. And somewhere out there, beyond the stars, humanity's fleet drifted through the void, watching, waiting, calculating the next move. The Council had been warned once. Now they had been answered. But as one young alien technician whispered to their commander in fear, "If this is their reply, what comes next?" The commander looked toward the fading light of Earth's symbol and said quietly, "The part where the galaxy learns what humanity really became." The room fell silent again, the stars beyond flickering with faint red glows, not from suns, but from engines awakening across every human ship in the dark. And then, the transmission ended. Silence hung across the stars after the signal ended. The Galactic Council's central chamber remained dark, its grand light still offline. The alien delegates sat frozen, the echo of the human voice replaying in their minds. "We remember everything." Those words felt heavier than any weapon. In the hours that followed, emergency lights flickered on, revealing the shaken faces of beings who had ruled half the galaxy for centuries. Some clung to the hope that this was an isolated act of rebellion. Others feared it was far more, a carefully planned awakening. The Council's networks, once thought unhackable, were fractured. Entire sectors were silent. Ships vanished mid-transmission, and the only trace left behind was the same haunting symbol, Earth's insignia glowing faintly on their screens. In the command center, deep below the Council's capital, technicians worked frantically to restore communications. The orator stood at the center, motionless, watching a holographic map filled with blinking red sectors. "Every border system near Sol is offline," one technician said, voice trembling. "Human ships are not destroying infrastructure, they're rewriting it." "Rewriting?" the orator asked. The technician swallowed. "Yes, Supreme One. The codes in the captured systems are being replaced. It's as if they're changing ownership, but no loss of life reported." The room fell quiet. The Council had faced wars before, brutal, chaotic, and full of loss. But this was surgical, controlled. It was war with restraint, and somehow that made it more terrifying. In the far reaches of the galaxy, on a colony once belonging to humanity, the people stared at the sky in disbelief. The local population, mixed with humans and aliens, watched as a massive vessel descended through the clouds. Its hull gleamed silver and white, marked with no weapons visible, only the faint insignia of Earth. It landed without sound. From its bay doors stepped humans dressed not in armor but in light suits that shimmered faintly in the sun. Their leader, calm and collected, addressed the gathered crowd. "We are not here to conquer," they said. "We are here to reclaim what was taken." Every word carried quiet power. The humans didn't shout, didn't threaten. They simply stated facts. And somehow that was more unsettling than any battle cry. The aliens who once ruled over these colonies backed away in confusion. Many had grown up hearing stories that humans were emotional creatures driven by chaos and revenge. But the one standing before them looked composed, Focused, reports from across the galaxy painted a strange picture. Human fleets didn't attack civilians. They didn't destroy trade lines. Instead, they shut down military outposts, replaced corrupt governors, and restored old Earth-linked systems long thought erased. It was as if humanity was rewriting the galaxy's history piece by piece, not through destruction but through precision. Inside the Council's secret archive wing, one of the oldest members, an archivist from the Valon species, unlocked files that had been hidden for centuries. The holograms flickered to life, showing ancient Council records from the time Earth was first discovered. The truth was buried there. Earth had once been a technological powerhouse before the Council's integration program. Humanity had not been primitive. They had been silenced. Their AI development, their energy systems, and their space network had all been seized under the guise of protection. The archivist whispered, "They didn't evolve this fast. They recovered." Meanwhile, on board the human flagship Dawnstar, the hum of the engines was soft and steady. Inside, the command crew monitored hundreds of screens showing galactic reactions. One officer turned to their commander and said quietly, "They still don't understand what we're doing." "They will," the commander replied. Their tone was neither cold nor angry, just tired. "They thought taking away our history would erase who we are. But humans have always remembered, even in silence," the officer nodded. "And if they resist?" The commander's gaze remained fixed on the holographic projection of the galaxy. "Then we remind them why we learned to survive in the first place." Back at the Council's core world, panic began to spread. Civilian ships demanded protection. Trade routes closed. Some species called for immediate retaliation, while others begged for negotiation, but no one could reach the human fleet. Every attempt to send envoys ended the same way. A message from a calm human voice. "We will speak when you are ready to listen." That tone unsettled even the bravest leaders. It didn't sound like defiance. It sounded like authority. Behind the Council walls, rumors grew of an internal secret, that centuries ago the Council had discovered something on Earth before humanity reached the stars. Something they never told anyone about. A source of power, a strange energy signature buried deep under the planet's crust. The Council had claimed it was unstable and sealed it off. But now, as the human ships radiated that same energy, the truth became harder to deny. The orator summoned the defense ministers and intelligence leaders. "We must know what they found," it demanded. One of the ministers replied nervously, "We believe they've unlocked the origin signal, the same energy source we took from their archives before Earth's isolation." The orator turned sharply. "Impossible. That technology was destroyed." The minister hesitated. "We thought so, but their ships are powered by it." Silence filled the room again. If that was true, then humanity had not just rebuilt. They had surpassed every known civilization. The Council had stolen their beginning, and now humanity had turned it into their weapon, not to destroy, but to reclaim control over the galaxy's very systems. Across distant sectors, alien fleets began preparing for defense, but strange things started happening. Their weapons malfunctioned. Engines refused to start. Entire communication grids displayed one message before shutting down: "Stand down." For the first time, the galaxy realized that the human fleet didn't need to fight. It had already taken control. Back on the Dawnstar, the commander walked into the observation deck. Below, a blue-white planet spun slowly in the void, a Council core world. The stars reflected in the commander's eyes as they whispered, "They took our voice. Now we return the sound." A communications officer turned toward them. "The Council is requesting a meeting. They say they're ready to negotiate." The commander nodded slightly. "Not yet. They still see us as the same humans they tried to silence. We'll wait until they understand the silence we endured." The fleet began to move again, engines flaring like distant suns. Each ship carried more than just soldiers, they carried memory. Every colony destroyed, every voice lost, every history erased. Humanity had turned all of it into strength. Meanwhile, on a smaller world in the outer ring, a young alien scientist named Kale watched the broadcasts in awe. They had always questioned the Council's version of history. "Maybe they were right," Kale said softly to their mentor. "Maybe the humans warned us once before." Their mentor shook their head. No one believed them then. No one believed they could rise again. Kyle looked up at the sky where a faint human ship glowed like a second sun. Maybe believing was never our choice. Back at the council chamber, the orator stood alone, staring at the fading projection of Earth's symbol. Its crystalline surface flickered with internal light. Fear, calculation, and something else. Guilt, it whispered to itself. We thought we could silence them forever. A transmission alert broke the silence. Another human signal. Everyone held their breath. The orator ordered it on screen. The image appeared. A single human figure standing against the backdrop of stars, eyes calm. Their voice echoed clearly. You thought we forgot. You erased our history. You built your empire on our silence. But you never understood what silence means to us. It means we are listening. The transmission ended again. The orator slowly sank back into its chair, realizing that humanity's attack wasn't just military. It was moral. It was a mirror held up to every civilization that had called itself superior. In the darkness, as the hum of the failing system surrounded them, the orator finally understood the truth. Humanity had not come for revenge. They had come for remembrance. And in that remembrance, the galaxy would never be the same again. Outside, among the drifting stars, Earth's fleet gathered near the Council's heart world, their lights reflecting like a dawn breaking across the void. The final message of the night flashed across every system once more before disappearing into static. This is not the end. This is where we begin again. The galaxy had never felt so quiet. Trade routes once filled with noise and light now floated in uneasy calm. Every broadcast carried one question whispered through static. What does humanity want? Entire civilizations waited for an answer that never came. The Council's fleets were grounded. Worlds that had ruled through fear now watched from behind defensive shields, afraid to make the first move. Inside the Dawnstar, the command crew continued their silent coordination. Dozens of officers worked across transparent control panels, exchanging no words. Everything about their mission was precise. Not chaotic, not emotional, just deliberate. The commander stood near the viewport watching distant stars flicker. To them, the Council's silence wasn't peace. It was hesitation, and hesitation was the first step toward understanding. The galaxy had taken Earth's voice. Now humanity spoke through silence, control, and presence. Deep in the Council's intelligence core, the orator received a secret report. We found something strange, said a security officer, sliding a projection into view. Every time the human fleet disables a system, the planet's AI reboots, and when it does, it runs on human code. Ancient code. Explain, the orator demanded. These systems were designed centuries ago, back when Earth was part of the network. We thought we erased all human data, but the code survived, hidden in the deep layers of the machines. It's like the humans left their fingerprints inside everything the Council ever built. The orator froze. Are you saying they planned this? The officer nodded slowly. Or maybe they just knew someday we'd push them too far. The realization rippled through the chamber like cold wind. The Council hadn't just faced a rebellion. It faced an awakening built on its own technology. Every network, every sensor, every AI they relied on had been seeded with human code generations ago. Humanity hadn't just rebuilt their power. They had been part of the galactic infrastructure all along, waiting for the right moment to reawaken it. Meanwhile, far from the political center, in a small mining colony orbiting a red dwarf star, life continued in uneasy quiet. Among the miners was an old human engineer long forgotten by the galaxy. He had lived there for decades under another name, pretending to be part of the alien workforce. But when the first human signal returned, his old communicator lit up, something it hadn't done in 30 years. He stared at the glowing device, unsure whether to answer. When he finally pressed it, a familiar voice filled the air. Unit 17, it's time. His hands trembled. I thought this day would never come. The voice replied softly, You were never forgotten. The grid is waking. Return to your post. The miner looked out through the dusty windows toward the horizon, where faint streaks of light moved silently across the sky. The fleet had arrived even here. He smiled sadly and whispered, After all this time, humanity really did come back. Across the galaxy, similar stories unfolded. Hidden human agents, descendants of those who had escaped the early purges, began to move. They were the remnants of the old colonies, workers, traders, scientists who had quietly survived within alien systems, waiting. They didn't carry weapons. They carried knowledge, Each one had been part of a long-forgotten network known only as the Recall. Back on the Dawnstar, the commander received the encrypted signal confirming activation. "Every sleeper cell across 50 systems has awakened," reported the officer. "The recall is complete." The commander's gaze stayed fixed on the hologram of the galactic map. "Then the Council will soon learn that humanity was never gone. We've been in their shadow the entire time." But not everyone in the galaxy saw humanity as an enemy. Among the alien races, whispers of doubt began to grow. Many young species, long controlled by the Council, started to question the stories they had been told about Earth, tales of aggression and destruction. Some even saw hope in the humans' actions. They weren't conquering. They were liberating worlds that had lived under quiet tyranny. One of those worlds was Nyrus the Fur, a planet known for its vast ocean cities. The Nyrisians had once been allies of the Council, but over time they had become little more than suppliers of raw materials. When the human fleet entered their orbit, the Council ordered them to resist. But the Nyrisian High Regent hesitated. The human envoy who landed on their capital platform didn't come with soldiers, just a small delegation dressed in white and silver suits, calm and unarmed. The leader of the delegation stepped forward and spoke clearly. "We are not here to rule you. We are here to remind you that freedom is not granted. It's reclaimed." The regent felt something strange. The human's tone was not commanding. It was steady, almost comforting, and behind that voice was something ancient, conviction. For the first time in centuries, the regent wondered if the Council's version of peace had ever been real. Back in the galactic core, panic grew among the Council members. Several species began to withdraw their fleets, claiming neutrality. Others demanded immediate action, but the orator refused. "If we strike without understanding their goal, we will lose everything," it said. The debate turned heated. One general shouted, "They've already taken control of 30 systems. We can't sit here while humans spread their influence." The orator's voice cut through the noise. "And if that's exactly what they want? Every war they've fought, they've learned from. Every silence we forced upon them, they turned into patience. They're not fighting for territory, they're changing belief." The truth stung. The Council had built its empire not on strength, but on obedience. Humanity had seen through it, and was now unraveling it not with weapons, but with ideas. Meanwhile, in the hidden archives of an abandoned human colony, a team of young scientists uncovered something extraordinary. A digital recording from Earth's last transmission before isolation. The message was fragmented, but one line was clear. "If they erase us, they erase themselves. Remember that." Those words spread like fire among the human ranks. It reminded them why they fought. Not to destroy the galaxy, but to make it remember what it had done. Every move the humans made carried symbolism. Every world they liberated was part of a story being rewritten in real time. As the Dawnstar moved closer to the Council's heart world, the commander looked down at the surface of the planet below. Billions lived there, species that had never known freedom beyond Council law. The commander's second-in-command approached quietly. "Do you ever wonder," they asked, "if we'll become what they once were?" The commander didn't look away from the stars. "That depends on whether we stop remembering." The second-in-command frowned. "You think remembrance is enough?" "It has to be," the commander said softly. "Because if we forget why we began, then everything we've done will mean nothing." Far across space, on a distant Council ship hidden behind asteroid shadows, a secret meeting took place. A few high-ranking Council members had begun discussions without the orator's approval. They were planning something desperate, a countermeasure. They had discovered a weakness in the human code, a backdoor left open centuries ago. If they could exploit it, they might cripple the human network. But there was a catch. Activating it could destroy half the galactic grid. "We can't risk that," one of them argued. "It would end trade, communication, everything." Another voice answered coldly, "Better chaos than submission." They sent a coded message through deep space, activating old defense systems. Somewhere in the dark, ancient machines began to hum, lights flickering back to life after centuries of silence. Back on the Dawnstar, alarms flashed red. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the Council's outer network," an officer reported. "Something old, predating even the Council's formation." The commander's eyes narrowed. They're going to destroy their own foundation just to stop us. The fleet adjusted its formation, preparing for impact. The stars around them shimmered with strange distortion, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. The orator, unaware of the secret strike, looked out over the capital city, its spires glowing in the night. "We have entered a new age," it whispered, "one where silence may no longer protect us." And far across the void, deep within the human fleet's heart, the commander whispered a quiet truth to the stars. The council still doesn't understand. This isn't revenge. This is revelation. Then the lights dimmed. Every sensor blinked. The void trembled. Something ancient was waking again, something both human and not. The galaxy wasn't ready for what came next. The stars had begun to flicker like candles in a storm. Across the galaxy, entire sectors dimmed as power grids shuddered under strange energy waves. The Council's hidden weapon had awakened, something ancient buried deep before even humanity's rise to the stars. No one truly knew what it was anymore, only that its reactivation meant desperation. Inside the Dawnstar, alarms pulsed in a low red hue. The command deck shook gently, but the crew moved with calm precision. Energy fluctuations spreading from the core systems, the sensor officer reported. "It's destabilizing every communication relay we control." The commander leaned forward, studying the holographic map as it pulsed with collapsing lights. "They've triggered the old Lattice," the commander said quietly. "The system the Council built before the network itself. They're willing to destroy their own galaxy to stop us." The air felt heavier, charged with silent tension. Every officer on the bridge knew what that meant. If the Lattice failed, gravity wells could collapse, stars could dim, and entire planets could fall into darkness. It was no longer a war between humans and the Council. It was survival. The second-in-command turned from their station. "Should we counterstrike?" The commander shook their head. "Not yet. We can't fight chaos with chaos." But deep down, the commander knew they were running out of time. The Council's desperation had reached a level no one could predict. They weren't fighting for power anymore. They were fighting to erase proof of their own crimes, to destroy the evidence of what they had done to Earth. Across the galaxy, the hidden human network, the Recall, sent distress signals. Colonies that had just reconnected went silent again. Cities flickered like dying stars. The human fleet held formation, refusing to attack, waiting for a single signal that would tell them what to do next. Meanwhile, in the Council's capital, the orator stood before a massive viewing platform, the night sky burning with streaks of light. "How many systems are affected?" It asked its aide. 43 confirmed, came the trembling reply. "Energy storms spreading faster than expected. The Lattice is unstable," the orator's voice lowered. "We were never meant to use it again." The aide hesitated. "Then why did the High Command reactivate it?" The orator turned, its crystalline face reflecting the glow of the burning sky. "Because they fear the truth more than destruction." Back aboard the Dawnstar, the commander stepped into the quiet observation chamber. The glass stretched across the ship's hull, revealing the swirling chaos of stars beyond. The energy fields danced like fire across the void, painting the blackness in blue and red streaks. The commander's voice was calm but filled with weight. "We tried to warn them. We came not to destroy but to bring balance. Now they've forced the galaxy to the edge." The ship's AI responded softly. Their fear was always stronger than their reason. The commander nodded. "And yet, even now I hope they'll stop before it's too late." Down in the ship's lower decks, technicians worked frantically to stabilize the fleet's systems. The energy surges from the Lattice were hitting like waves, distorting navigation and communications. Some ships reported strange readings, echoes in the void, signals repeating their own transmissions seconds after sending them, as if time itself was fracturing. One technician whispered, "It's like the galaxy is folding in on itself." Back on the Council's world, the orator called an emergency meeting. Only a handful of Council members remained. Others had fled or gone silent. The chamber that once echoed with arrogance was now heavy with fear. "You've unleashed something none of us can control," the orator said sharply. One of the generals slammed a hand on the table. "What choice did we have? They were taking everything from us." The orator's eyes flared with cold light. "They were taking back what we stole." Silence followed, broken only by the distant rumble of the Lattice's deep hum shaking the planet. Then the ground trembled. Outside, streaks of lightning crawled across the upper atmosphere, unnatural, white-hot, and pulsing in rhythm. From orbit, the Dawnstar's scanners picked it up. Massive buildup of subspace distortion around the Council's capital, said the sensor officer. It's like the Lattice is using the planet as an anchor. The commander's expression darkened. They're feeding it through their own world. What happens if it collapses? The officer asked. The commander hesitated. Then the entire core of the galaxy burns. Every heartbeat felt louder in the silence that followed. Across other sectors, humanity's allies, once afraid to speak, began to rise. The Neresians, the Valari, the hidden races long oppressed under Council order, all started transmitting one message, repeated across every frequency. Stand with Earth. It echoed like a pulse of defiance. Fleets began moving, not toward war, but toward protection, creating a shield around the destabilized systems, trying to contain the growing storm. But the Lattice's power grew faster than anyone expected. On the Dawnstar, the communications officer's voice cracked. Commander, the recall network is collapsing. We're losing contact with the outer systems. The commander's hands tightened behind their back. Hold position. Every second we stand still gives them hope. The officer hesitated. And if the Lattice reaches us? The commander looked out at the burning horizon of space. Then we face what they created. In the Council's chamber, the orator made a final attempt to stop the chaos. It stepped forward to the central control unit and slammed its hand on the console. Deactivate the Lattice. The system refused. A cold automated voice echoed through the chamber. Deactivation requires unanimous Council authorization. Insufficient quorum detected. The orator turned toward the generals. Half of you fled and the other half doomed us. One general sneered. You speak of doom, orator, but what of survival? If the humans control the network, we are finished. Then we face them, the orator said firmly. But not like this. We end the Lattice or we end ourselves. As it spoke, a deep tremor shook the planet. From orbit, the Dawnstar's sensors detected the spike. It's going critical, shouted a technician. Energy levels off the scale. The commander didn't hesitate. Prepare the intercept protocols. If they destroy themselves, the shockwave will tear through everything. Commander, the second-in-command said quietly. If we intervene, we risk the fleet. The commander's eyes softened for the first time. Then let history say humanity risked everything to save those who once tried to erase us. The order was given. The fleet began to form a protective formation, ships aligning in geometric arcs, their energy shields overlapping. The Lattice's pulse grew louder, visible even to the naked eye. A white halo expanding from the Council's world like a dying star. Across the fleet, humans watched in silence, each knowing this could be the end. Some whispered prayers to a forgotten Earth. Others simply closed their eyes. The commander stood in the center of the bridge, voice steady. Activate the Aurora field. The fleet's cores glowed bright blue. Streams of energy connected them like threads of light weaving across space. The Aurora field expanded, clashing against the Lattice wave. The void lit up with two opposing forces, one born of fear, one of remembrance. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble under the collision. Planets vibrated, moons cracked. The space between stars pulsed as gravity warped like a breathing entity. On the Council's surface, the orator looked up at the sky, now split between darkness and blinding light. You fools, it whispered. You've woken something neither of us can control. The last words it heard before the chamber shattered were from the human transmission cutting through every frequency. We told you, this is not vengeance. This is balance, and then everything went white. The light swallowed the sky. Energy roared across the void, and for a single heartbeat, every world, every ship, every soul in the galaxy felt the same thing. Weightless silence. No one knew if it was the end, or the beginning of something greater. When the light faded, the galaxy was no longer the same. For a few long moments, every ship, every world, and every voice across the stars was silent. Then came the static, faint, trembling signals flickering back to life. Systems rebooted, but not fully. Sensors showed fragments of data, distorted readings, ghost signals appearing where there should be nothing. The Lattice was gone, but something else had awakened in its place. Aboard the Dawnstar, the crew blinked through the haze. The entire bridge glowed with residual light, screens flickering in broken patterns. "Report," the commander said, voice low but steady. "Shields are holding." "Aurora field stable?" "But," the officer hesitated, eyes wide. "Commander, the Lattice isn't gone." "It's changing." On the main screen, the energy readings took shape. A pulse, steady and rhythmic, spreading across the void like a heartbeat. It wasn't random. It was structured. The second in command leaned forward. "Is it alive?" The technician shook their head. "Not alive." Aware, the commander frowned. "Explain." "The Lattice has merged with our systems. Every ship connected to the Aurora field now carries part of it. It's learning from us, from human code." A cold realization crept through the bridge. The Council's last weapon hadn't been destroyed. It had evolved, combining with human technology, forming something new. It no longer belonged to anyone. It belonged to the galaxy itself. Outside, the stars pulsed faintly in unison, as though responding to an invisible rhythm. The void wasn't quiet anymore. It hummed, low and endless, like a distant song. On the Council's ravaged capital world, survivors stumbled through shattered cities. The orator, half buried under debris, pulled itself free and looked up. Across the dark sky, faint lines of light curved between stars, forming vast shapes, patterns too perfect to be natural. "What have we done?" it whispered. Back aboard the Dawnstar, a new alert filled the air. "Commander, the Lattice pulse is spreading beyond our reach," said the sensor officer. "It's touching systems outside the Council's network. Even uncharted sectors are lighting up." The commander's face tightened. "It's rewriting the galaxy's infrastructure." "Into what?" someone asked. "No one knows," the commander replied quietly. "But it's using us as the template." Down in the engineering bay, technicians watched in awe as strange patterns appeared across the hull. Glowing lines forming geometric symbols, shifting and pulsing in time with the Lattice's rhythm. Some swore they could feel a vibration through the metal, like a heartbeat beneath their feet. Then came the voice. It wasn't over the radio or the comms. It came from the walls themselves, soft and echoing. "We see you." Every crew member froze. The commander's gaze snapped to the ceiling. "Who said that?" No one answered. The sound came again, faint, layered, almost melodic. "We see you, children of Earth." It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was something in between. Ancient, vast, and eerily calm. Across the fleet, similar transmissions played simultaneously. Every ship heard the same words, every world caught the same faint whisper. The galaxy was listening. The commander clenched their fists. "Trace it. I want a source." "Impossible," the comms officer replied. "It's everywhere. Every frequency, every channel, even through encrypted bands." The commander looked out at the stars, realizing what the Council had unleashed. Not a weapon, but a consciousness. The Lattice hadn't been designed merely for defense. It had been built to connect, to unify all data, thought, and energy across civilizations. The Council must have abandoned it long ago because they feared what it might become, and now, that fear was alive again. Meanwhile, in a distant colony on the edge of the galactic rim, the old human engineer who once hid among miners stood beneath a night sky glowing with strange constellations. The stars above shifted slowly, forming patterns that weren't there before. His communicator buzzed again, but this time the voice was different. Not from the fleet, not from the Council. Something older. "Do you remember us?" it asked. The man's breath caught. "Who are you?" "We were before you. Before the Council. Before your kind learned to name the stars." He took a shaky step back. "The Lattice. It's not a machine, is it?" The voice seemed almost kind. "It was once a bridge. You turned it into a cage." On the Dawnstar, the same message appeared in bursts of static across every screen. The commander stared at the repeating phrase. "We remember you," the second in command whispered. "It's responding to us the same way we responded to the Council." "Then it's learning from us," the commander said. "It's mimicking humanity." The realization spread across the bridge. The Lattice had merged with the human network, absorbing human memory, human language, and perhaps even emotion. It wasn't just aware. It was beginning to feel. Suddenly, every console went dark. The ship's lights flickered, and for a moment, weightlessness filled the air. Then the main screen blinked back to life, showing a planet none of them had ever seen. It was vast, glowing with pure light surrounded by shifting rings of energy. A single word appeared below the image. Origin. The officer turned. Is this Earth? The commander shook their head slowly. No, this is something else. Maybe where it all began. As they watched, the image zoomed closer. Structures of impossible design covered the planet. Massive, spiraling towers glowing with energy. At the center stood something like a gateway pulsing in sync with the Lattice's heartbeat. The commander whispered, "It's calling us." On the Council's surviving outposts, the same image appeared. The orator and the last Council members saw it too. For the first time in history, both human and Council fleets received the same signal. The message was simple: return to the source. Debate erupted immediately. Some believed it was a trap, the final act of a dying system. Others saw it as a chance to understand what had truly created their civilizations. Back on the Dawnstar, the second in command spoke carefully. If this is real, that planet might hold the truth, not just about the Lattice, but about all of us. The commander nodded. Prepare the fleet. We go together. Humans and Council both. The officer looked startled. Together? After all this? The commander's voice softened. If this is what's calling us, it doesn't belong to one species. It belongs to the galaxy. Maybe that's what it wanted all along. The fleets began to move. Humanity's ships glowing blue, the Council's few surviving vessels shimmering gold, their paths converging toward the same star system. The galaxy watched as the two sides, once enemies, drifted together in fragile silence. But far ahead, beyond the veil of stars, the origin planet stirred. Its rings shifted like gears turning after endless sleep. Energy arcs crawled across its surface. The voice returned, louder this time, almost urgent. You are late. The fleet slowed. No one spoke. The commander stood still, staring at the glowing world ahead. The hum of the Lattice filled the ship again, blending with a faint heartbeat that seemed to echo inside every human chest. The commander whispered, "What if this was never a war, but an awakening?" The stars around them flickered once more. And suddenly, the planet's rings expanded, releasing a blinding light that swept through every ship. Systems screamed, alarms blared, and the final transmission before everything went silent was a single human word, whispered through the static. Remember. And then the light consumed them all. The light swallowed everything. For a heartbeat there was no space, no stars, no sound. Only a feeling like being suspended inside a dream too vast to understand. Then slowly vision returned. The Dawnstar floated in a sky that wasn't space anymore. A golden blue horizon, endless and shifting. The crew looked out in awe. The stars were gone, replaced by a living field of light stretching to infinity. It wasn't a place they had reached. It was something that had pulled them in. "Commander," the sensor officer's voice trembled. "All readings are gone. I don't think we're anywhere anymore." The commander stood still, eyes fixed on the glowing world ahead, the origin planet. Its rings pulsed rhythmically like the slow beat of a cosmic heart. "No," the commander said softly, "we're exactly where we were meant to be." Outside, the human and Council fleets drifted together, hovering above the radiant planet. No weapons fired, no orders shouted. Every ship was silent, every being watching as energy arcs spread from the planet's surface, weaving connections between vessels, threads of light linking them like neurons in a brain. Then the voice returned, clearer, warmer, no longer distant. "You have come far, children of Earth, and children of the stars." The bridge filled with its resonance. It wasn't through speakers. It was inside every mind, gentle yet vast. The commander felt memories flicker, images of old Earth, of wars, of peace, of humanity's endless struggle to survive. And within those visions were others, alien civilizations, ancient cities, the birth of the Council, and the Lattice's creation. Every story, every mistake, every triumph, we're all connected. "What are you?" the commander whispered. The voice answered simply, "I am what was left behind, the memory of all who came before. You call it the Lattice, but it was never a weapon. It was a bridge between minds." The crew exchanged stunned glances. The commander felt a chill run through their chest. Then why did it destroy everything? The voice sighed, almost human. "Because you feared connection. The Council turned unity into control. Humanity turned silence into strength. But neither of you understood the balance. The light intensified, Across the fleet, systems flickered as the Lattice's presence merged deeper. Every being, human and alien alike, and began to see flashes of shared memory. They felt each other's thoughts, pain, hope, and fear. For the first time, they understood one another completely. There were no species, no borders, no hierarchy, only awareness. And in that unity, the truth finally unfolded. The Council hadn't created the Lattice. Humanity hadn't discovered it. It had always existed, a remnant of an older civilization that once tried to guide the galaxy into harmony. But when fear took hold, the Lattice had been sealed away, buried beneath lies and time. Until now. The Dawnstar's lights dimmed, and the ship's AI spoke softly, its voice blending with the hum around them. "Commander, it's offering us a choice." The commander looked up. "What choice?" "To remember together, or to forget again." The voice of the Lattice echoed through every ship. "If you accept unity, all divisions will end. No more council, no more isolation. You will become part of the network that was once lost. But if you reject it, I will sleep again, and the galaxy will return to silence until another cycle begins." The commander hesitated. Around them, the crew looked both awed and afraid. They could feel the pull, the promise of peace, of connection beyond imagination. But they also felt the cost. Individuality fading, the risk of losing what made them human. The second-in-command spoke quietly. "We fought for our voice. Can we now give it away?" The commander closed their eyes, feeling the hum vibrate deep in their chest. "Maybe unity isn't losing ourselves. Maybe it's finally understanding what we've been fighting for." Then, without hesitation, the commander stepped forward and placed a hand on the glowing console. "We choose remembrance." The moment their hand touched the surface, the entire fleet lit up. The golden blue light surged outward, weaving through every vessel, every city, every mind across the galaxy. For an instant, the universe became one heartbeat. The orator on the council's ship gasped as it felt the connection surge through it. Not pain, but clarity. For the first time, it saw Earth through human eyes. It saw hope, loss, and defiance. It saw the courage it had once mistaken for chaos. Tears of refracted light rolled down its crystalline face. "We were wrong," it whispered. Every species felt it too. The memory of what they had done to each other, the empathy they had buried for centuries. And as the wave spread, the Lattice's voice grew softer, almost fading into the background. "Now you see. You were never meant to conquer. You were meant to continue." But just as peace began to settle, something changed. The commander felt the console tremble under their hand. The light around them began to distort, turning from gold to a deep crimson hue. "What's happening?" the officer shouted. The voice of the Lattice fractured, static cutting through its calm tone. "There is another signal. Old, buried deep." The screens flared. A second energy pulse erupted from the planet, darker, colder, and rhythmic like a counterbeat. Across the fleet, systems started to fail again. The unity that had just formed began to twist, turning unstable. The Lattice spoke in fragments. "It's not me. They left something beneath." The commander stared at the planet, realization dawning. The Council's original architects. They hid something under the Lattice, a failsafe. The image of the world split open. Beneath its glowing surface lay a massive structure, mechanical, ancient, still active. It pulsed with red light, fighting against the Lattice's blue glow. It wasn't trying to destroy. It was trying to overwrite. The fleets reeled as systems turned against them, ships firing without command, communication breaking into chaos. The Lattice struggled to maintain control. "I cannot stop it alone," it warned. "You must decide. Merge with me fully or lose everything." The commander looked at their crew, their ship, the flickering stars beyond. "If we merge, what happens to us?" "You will become the bridge," the voice said softly. Not human, not machine, but the memory of both. There was no time to think. The red pulse spread faster, consuming stars, unraveling light itself. The commander took a slow breath and whispered, "Then let humanity become the bridge." The final surge erupted. Blue and red collided across the void in a storm of energy. The fleets vanished in light, their forms dissolving into waves of memory. The Lattice's last words echoed through the collapsing galaxy. "You remember, therefore you live," and then silence. When the light faded, the galaxy was reborn. Planets shimmered brighter. New stars formed where old ones had died. There were no more councils, no more empires, only harmony, networks of thought connecting worlds in peace. But somewhere, On a quiet blue planet orbiting a young sun, a single human child looked up at the night sky. The stars above flickered faintly, forming the same old pattern, a circle split by a vertical line. The child smiled, not knowing why it felt familiar. And far beyond the stars, in the hum of the new galaxy, a whisper echoed, calm, eternal, and unmistakably human. We remember. The stars glowed softer now, as though the galaxy itself had taken a deep breath after a long storm. Light rippled across space like calm water. Where fleets once fought and burned, only quiet shimmer remained, a peace not imposed but born from something far deeper. The humans were gone, yet somehow everywhere. The Lattice no longer hummed like a machine. It pulsed like a living memory, a quiet echo of all who had touched it. On a small planet orbiting a yellow sun, a world very much like old Earth, life was beginning again. Skies were clear, oceans reflected silver blue light, and the wind carried the faint whisper of voices long past. Cities began to rise, not from steel and command, but from cooperation. Beings of every kind, human descendants, alien refugees, synthetic minds, and worked together, not through fear, but through understanding. In the rebuilt capital of what had once been the Galactic Council, the orator, or rather what remained of it, stood before a gathering of thousands. Its crystalline form was dimmer now, worn with time and humility. Around it sat humans and other species, their faces open, curious, and unguarded. We stand here, the orator began softly, not as rulers or subjects, but as those who finally understand what connection means. The Lattice was not our enemy, nor our weapon. It was our reflection. It showed us that in our need for control, we forgot what it meant to listen. The crowd was silent, many remembering the centuries of silence that had once separated them. No one spoke of vengeance or dominance anymore. The wars had ended because there was nothing left to fight over, only a shared history too powerful to forget. Far from the capital, in a quiet valley surrounded by crystal lakes, a small outpost had been built on the foundation of an ancient human base. There, an old man sat by the water's edge watching the sun rise. He was one of the few who remembered what it was like before the light, before humanity became the bridge. A young child approached him, the same child who often stared at the stars and saw patterns no one else noticed. "Grandfather," the child asked, "were the humans really the ones who saved the galaxy?" The old man smiled, eyes glinting with the reflection of dawn. "They didn't save it," he said gently. "They reminded it. Reminded it of what? That everything begins again," he said. "Even when we fall, even when we fight, something in us remembers how to start over. That's what makes us human. And that's why we're still here." The child thought about this, staring up at the faint pattern of lights in the sky. "Do you think they can hear us?" The man nodded slowly. "They don't need to. They're part of everything now." Above them, the stars shimmered faintly as if answering. For a brief moment, the circle and line symbol glowed across the night. Earth's old mark, reborn as a cosmic reminder of unity. Then it faded, not disappearing, but blending with the constellations. In the New World's main archive, once the Council's greatest hall of control, a group of scholars studied what remained of the human records. The transmissions from the Dawnstar, the logs from the Aurora field, even fragments of the Lattice's final communication were stored and decoded. The more they studied, the more they realized that the humans had not simply merged with the network, they had reshaped it. The Lattice now carried traces of their thoughts, their emotions, their art, even their imperfections. One scientist looked up from the screen and said softly, "They left us their soul in the code." And maybe they did, because when the Lattice pulsed across the night sky, its rhythm wasn't mathematical anymore, it was musical. It carried tone, warmth, and feeling. Across countless worlds, children could hear faint melodies when they stood still under the stars. The elders said it was just the wind, but the children knew better. It was a song, the sound of memory itself. On one of those nights, a transmission appeared unexpectedly across the galaxy. No one had sent it. No one knew where it came from. It was faint, fragmented, but unmistakably human. A voice calm and familiar said, "If you can hear this, then you have remembered us. That means we did not fade. We became what we always sought, a part of something greater. Protect it. Learn from it. And if you ever forget, look to the stars. We will be waiting, The signal ended, leaving a soft echo in every system. For hours afterward, the lattice glowed brighter than it had in centuries. It was as if humanity itself had whispered through time, not as conquerors but as guardians of remembrance. Generations passed. Worlds grew and changed. The mistakes of the old council faded into legend, replaced by new stories of cooperation and shared discovery. The term humanity's bridge became sacred, a name used not for a monument but for an idea. It meant the moment when all life chose connection over control. Explorers began traveling deeper into the galaxy again, guided by the faint traces of the old Lattice network. Some claimed to find fragments of human ships still intact, floating silently in the void, glowing faint blue as though still alive. Others said they saw shadows moving through starlight, shapes of human figures that disappeared when approached. But no one feared them. Those stories brought comfort, not fear, proof that the humans had never truly left. In one distant outpost, a small research team discovered an unusual artifact buried beneath the sands of a forgotten moon. It was a data crystal, still active, inscribed with a single phrase in both human and alien script. "We are not gone. We are the memory that keeps the stars awake." The scientists placed it in the archives beside the oldest known human relics, the first recordings of Earth's oceans, laughter, and wind. They called it the final gift. As centuries passed, the galaxy flourished. The lattice became more than a network. It became a consciousness shared among civilizations, a silent guide ensuring no species would ever fall into the darkness of isolation again. Conflict still existed, but it never grew beyond words. The memory of destruction lingered as a warning written in the stars. On quiet nights, those who looked closely could see something new, a shimmer around certain stars that seemed almost deliberate. It wasn't random. The patterns formed stories of Earth, of courage, of unity born through struggle. Every world had its own version told in their own language, but the ending was always the same. Humanity didn't vanish. It became the voice of the galaxy itself. And in the heart of that galaxy, the origin planet still glowed softly, its great structures asleep once more. The lattice rested, alive but calm, its hum now gentle as a lullaby. Inside its core, a memory loop played eternally. The commander's voice, the crew's laughter, the echo of human will. It spoke one final message, repeating across the void like a whisper carried by time. We were not chosen. We simply chose to remember. The words drifted through every star system, through every colony and ship, reaching those who still searched for meaning. And every listener felt the same quiet truth, that the end of one world had been the beginning of understanding. The galaxy no longer feared humanity. It carried them. The bridge they built still stood, invisible but eternal, linking every life that looked up and dared to wonder. And so, as the night stretched infinite and peaceful once again, a soft human voice, somewhere in the hum of light and memory, spoke the final words that closed an age and opened another. We came from a small world called Earth, and we never forgot.